I'm studying neuroscience at Mahidol University here in Thailand. And thankfully, it's an international program because I could not do it in Thai. But I want to do my research involving neural efficiency and the role fatigue plays within our brains. So neural efficiency, to put it succinctly, is basically the idea that somebody who's an expert at something, or say an elite athlete, will use less brain power, or will show less will show less energy usage if you took like a picture of their brain, as opposed to somebody else who wasn't an expert or who was an amateur doing the same task, as long as it's that thing that they're an expert at. So a soccer player would show much less brain power when they're making a pass or shooting, as opposed to somebody who like wasn't good at soccer. And so we've kind of established that this neural efficiency exists in athletes. And so what I want to look at further is to see how fatigue, whether it be physically fatigued from, running around for 40 or for 90 minutes, or if it's mental fatigue from, thinking and having to constantly be concentrating on what you're doing. I want to see how that fatigue affects how much brain power you have to use. And so to think about it, you think about how if you're running or something and you are running really easily, like you feel like you're not using that much energy, right? But like the faster you run or whatever, I feel like it's the more effort that you have to mentally put into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to think about what you're doing and kind of like keep yourself on track. Like, okay, I have to keep this pace up. I have to go faster. And so I want to kind of relay that same concept to your brain and see, like, if you're fatigued, your brain has to use more power to keep you at the same level as you were before. And so I kind of want to see how this fatigue affects your ability to make decisions on the field, and see if like your brain power will change as you're doing this task or whatever. So that's basically the general idea of my project is going to be.
Okay. And that's specific to football?
Yeah, so I'm going to be using soccer players, and they will be doing soccer specific tasks while their brains are being scanned.
Okay. Wow. Is that when you say while their brains are being scanned, are those resources supplied? Sorry, I lost my English there. Are those resources supplied by the university?
Mm-hmm. So I'll be using specifically an EEG, which is like those little electrodes you place all over your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I don't really know what I expect to happen, because there's going to be a lot of artifact from the fact that movement is going to be involved with some of the tasks.
Right.
So I have a passing task that's going to be involved, but I don't expect to see much difference there, because I feel like the movement is going to kind of make it hard to see anything. But I also have like a visual soccer task where it's going to involve them kind of just deciding where the ball is being passed, so they don't have to move. They just have to like look at the picture and decide which one's going to be faster. And it's been done in other sports, so it should work the same way in soccer, so that they don't have to move as much. It's more of a how fast is your brain thinking and reaction timing.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Thank you. I hope it works.
I hope so too.
I want to graduate.
How would you describe the breakdown of just, I suppose, the decision making in I suppose before you receive a ball, you're
Mm-hmm.
you're faced with a certain scenario as you see it, and then once you have the ball, the pressure alongside opponents that are with you, either on a high press or defending you close, you're constantly thinking. And this is why I make the referral to, as bad as people say that multitasking is within work, football
Mm-hmm.
is such a game that it's almost necessary to be able to do that.
Right.
Would you say that it's multitasking, or would you say that each thought is an individual thought on its own that you just combine in increments?
I would say it's multitasking, because you're not just thinking about what's going on around you. You're constantly moving as well, right? You have to think about the ball that's going to come, or like where the next pass is going, where your opponent is, where your defender is, where your teammates, if you have the ball, if you get the ball, who you're going to pass it to. And the game is constantly moving. And so I would say our brains are like computers, where you're processing so much information at one time that you almost aren't aware of how much you're processing. This might be a little off topic, but I don't know if you guys saw the video they did of Ronaldo when they did like all those scientific studies on him and stuff. And there was the one that I thought was really interesting, where they would cross a ball to him and then they'd turn off the lights, but he could still score.
I think I have seen that.
And so I think that right there shows you that like you're processing so much more information than you're actually aware of. Like his brain, and I think the best of us, not including me or, you know, whoever is like the best in the world, is, you know, your brain is already, before the ball's even there, you've already processed and calculated where the ball is going to land and stuff. And I think sometimes when you're on a field that isn't flat, you can kind of see how your brain has already processed what's supposed to happen, and then the ball hops over your foot because you're like, oh, did I make the wrong decision? But I think it's just because you're used to something else happening, but because the field isn't flat anymore, something else happens instead. So your brain is already processing what it's supposed to do and what's supposed to happen, but with a field like that, it's new information.
Wow. That's yeah. That's completely true with the different fields that I've played on previously, but the thought process is crazy to think about, really.
Or it's like even with like a different type of ball, right? Like if you have like a lighter ball, it almost takes you a couple of like practices with it before you realize what's the right weight you should use with it when you're trapping or when you're passing. It's different for each ball.
Even different grasses, like that's why every like actual game you would have like a 1-2 training session in the stadium, because
exactly
the grass is different. Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
So yeah, I think our brains are doing a lot more than we know they're doing.
100%.